Welcome back, everybody. Hope you've had an amazing week, and we are continuing on with our Gospels and we're in the book of Luke. So we've done Matthew, Mark, obviously, and now we are at Luke. We've done an introduction. Today, we're hopefully going to conclude the first part of the 3 parts of Luke. And so, as I joked last week, that we're doing the third half. The first 2/3 that we've looked at have very much been around Jesus, or Luke, showing us that Jesus' kingdom is not what we thought it was going to be. That it wasn't political, it wasn't national. It's all about the poor, the sick, the marginalised, the ostracised, and there's a lot of stories then that back up that position. And so as we enter into the last, so if you're wondering, it's sort of up to about chapter 9 is that sort of introductory. Next week we'll go from chapter 10 to 19, which is Jesus's trip to Jerusalem. What we've been looking at, as I said, is there's been a lot of stories about healing, a lot of stories about, demon possessed and all this sort of thing. And really it seems to be the aim of Luke that they were expecting a political leader. They're expecting, Jesus is the fulfillment of Moses, he's the fulfillment of, Elijah and David. And so they're expecting Jesus to come and fulfill it in a way that they imagined him to. And Jesus is actually showing, the way Tim Mackey from the Bible Project says it's the upside down kingdom. We thought it was going to come looking like this, but it's completely flipped up the other way. So as we get into finishing this last third, which is basically chapter 9, I actually find this really fascinating because what happens, the first 2 stories essentially of chapter 9 is, the first one is Jesus sends out the 12 disciples to preach the kingdom wherever they go. And then the second thing that happens is they come back, and then Jesus says to Peter, "Who do people say that I am?" And he says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." And that's a great answer, obviously. But isn't it interesting, the order? Jesus didn't ask Peter, "Hey, Peter, who do people say that I am? And who do you say that I am?" "Oh, good, you said I'm the Messiah. Well, now you're qualified to go out and preach the gospel or preach the kingdom." He actually sent them out before he even knew, or before Peter was even convinced that Jesus was the Messiah. I think that's fascinating because it really begs the question of what stops us. Sometimes don't we, I don't know about you, but I know that myself, I can feel that I'm not qualified to talk about it, that maybe I might get it wrong, or maybe I don't know enough, or maybe whatever. Well, Peter didn't even know that Jesus was the Messiah, and Jesus is sending off the 12 to preach the kingdom. So probably from that perspective, what's the word I'm looking for? It eradicates our excuses, hey? That there is no excuse for us to not be able to go out and tell people that there is a better way to do life, that it's found in the kingdom of heaven, and that you can bring heaven wherever you go. So I think that's pretty cool. As we look at the story of the 12, Jesus sends them out, and it says, "Go and don't take any money, don't take all your stuff, but if they don't accept you, shake the dust from your feet and as a thing against them." And that's something worth having a look at because, and I actually read, there's a fantastic book, if you haven't read it, a book is called something like Covered in the Dust of Rabbi Jesus, something like that, by Lois Tvergberg, and do your best with that, and I'll get it to you if you're interested. But she talks about this, and she talks about what would happen is the rabbis and the disciples would walk in single file, and the rabbis would have these shoes that would kick up the dust as they walked. And so the person that was covered in the dust of their rabbi, that was like something to be celebrated. It's like, oh, look at all the dust I'm covered in, because I was the favorite this week, and I was the closest to Rabbi Jesus. So when it's talking about shake the dust off your feet, this is not a curse. This is a blessing. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. They don't want to accept you. That's okay. Bless them anyway. And the verse that comes to mind is there's a verse in Proverbs that says, if you're kind to a mean person, it's like pouring hot coals on their head. I think there's an element of that where you're going, okay, you don't accept me, and you think, you're being a bit of a jerk. You're not interested, but I am going to leave you not with a curse. I'm going to leave you blessed. And I think that's something that we could grab a hold of. Then the next story, which is pretty cool. I mean, there's the feeding of the 5,000. If you want to know that, make sure you're reading the Gospels. Probably if you're listening to this, you are reading the Gospel, so you know the story. But there's two things that jump out at me about that. The first one is that how much God can do with little. If we just give him our little, he can do so much. And the second thing that jumps out about me with this story is Jesus is feeding the 5,000 not because they're needy, but because they're hungry. In fact, it's not even that they are needy, it's that they're lazy. In fact, it doesn't say that these are 5,000 homeless people. These are 5,000 people that could have packed a lunch, could have bought some lunch, could have gone to McDonald's on the way, but they just were so distracted following Jesus, all of a sudden the day has ended and they don't have food. These were disorganized, not homeless or whatever. And yet Jesus still fed them. Sometimes, I don't know about you, it can be easy to have an attitude, well, they made their bed, they've got to lie in it. But Jesus goes, no, look, they're hungry. If you've got the opportunity to feed a hungry person, just feed them. Don't pray about it, don't think about it, don't justify it. If you can feed a hungry person, just feed them. And I reckon that's pretty cool as well. Then the next bit, I actually want to read it to us. So I'm just going to try open up the Bible here, which is found in Luke chapter 9, and we're going to read from verse 23. And Jesus says this, "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it. For what is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself?" I reckon that's pretty interesting. It's saying this. It's saying that a full life is not found in trying to fill yourself. A full life is found when we try to fill others. And as we fill others, we too will be filled. Again, there's a proverb that says, a generous person, as you're restoring others, you too will be restored. I think that's interesting because I think we live in a culture and we live in a community that's like, I need to fill my bucket and I need my bucket filled. And as you continue to fill your bucket, it's like there's a hole in the bucket. But Jesus is going, if you want your life to be filled to the full, then fill the other people, fill the bucket of the people around you. Be kind to them, be generous to them, help them, look out for them, lay down your ambitions in order to help them achieve theirs. And as you do that, you're going to find that you yourself will also be full, that you will find the life that you're looking for. And then he goes on to say, "For whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in his glory and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. But I say to you truthfully, there are some of those standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God." All right, I just want to tackle quickly that verse that says, if you're ashamed of what Jesus is doing and what he says, then he'll be ashamed of you. Because to me, it asks a pretty vital question. The question it asks to me is, are you ashamed of the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ? And what is the message? The message is the kingdom of heaven. I think a lot of us actually are ashamed of that message. We can't just tell people they got to love their neighbor as themselves. We can't tell people that love God, love your neighbor. We got to tell people they're doing wrong. We've got to tell them. And we end up making up our own legalistic religious gospel because we're ashamed of his gospel. Can I encourage us? Let's never be ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the gospel of the kingdom of heaven, the gospel of bringing heaven everywhere you see hell here, the gospel of loving people well, the gospel of accepting people and belonging in community. That is the gospel of Jesus. That is the gospel of the kingdom. And Jesus is saying, never be ashamed of that gospel. It is a powerful, powerful gospel. And then we're just going to finish with this little bit, which is what happens is we call it the transfiguration. What happens is Jesus grabs Peter and John and James, I think, and takes them up the mountain. And when they're up there, Jesus sort of shines bright like a diamond, or whatever that song is. And you got Moses and Elijah standing there on top of the mountain with him. And there's some cool stuff all around that. But I love this thought because I think, see, here's the thing. Everybody knows that the Messiah is the new Moses. The Messiah is the new Elijah, the fulfillment of the law and fulfillment of the prophets. And Jesus gives this sort of snapshot or this little insight to Peter, James and John, letting them know who he really is, that he is the Messiah. This matters because there are a lot of people claiming to be the Messiah. There's something like 20-something people within about a 100-year period that they thought was the Messiah. From Judas Maccabeus all the way through to the 60, 70 AD with Judah ben Kokva and these other guys. But none of them were able to do the things that Jesus was able to do, to show that he actually was the fulfillment of the law and the fulfillment of the prophets. And so we've got this incredible story where maybe we could summarize the part one like this, that part one is all about Jesus' kingdom coming, and it looks very different than we thought it was going to. It's not political, it wasn't nationalistic, it was everybody was invited, everybody is included. It is this upside down kingdom for everybody, including the poor, the sick, the marginalized, the oppressed. It is for everybody. This is what the kingdom of heaven is all about. And more than that, Jesus is the king, and Jesus then shows people the stories, the healings, the feeding of the poor, this kind of scenario, finished with the Mount of Transfiguration going, look, I am the king, and this is what the kingdom looks like. This is what it looks like to fulfill the law. This is what it feels like to fulfill the prophets. That's why Jesus is able to say, if you treat people the way you'd want to be treated if you were them, this is what it means to fulfill the law and the prophets. Love God with all you got and love your neighbor as yourself. This is what it means to fulfill the law and the prophets. How is he able to say that? Because he is the fulfillment of the law of the prophets, and he is the Messiah, and that's what it looks like. All right, so that's part one of Luke complete. We are now going to move in next week to part two, which is the start of Jesus' journey to Jerusalem. So, again, comment below where you're up to. If you got anything out of this, if there's something else that you got out of it that I missed, put it in the comments. Let's be chatting and communicating. Make sure you're reading, you're keeping up to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because Jesus is the center of our story. And so, other than that, see you Sunday and then next week. Love you. Bye-bye.